What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40k. In this one, we have new lore that talks about the first ever Chaos Space Marine warband that is dedicated to Vashtorr, the demigod of innovation. So here we see the Ushmengar, and they're fighting against the Executioner Space Marine chapter, and it's pretty interesting to see how the warriors of Vashtorr fight in combat, because they're not really dedicated to a chaos god, but they still get some pretty nifty abilities being dedicated to Vashtorr. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. The Chaos Space Marine cocked its head to one side, eyes boring into Razel's. When the Death Speaker was within reach, it nodded and spread its arms wide. The Executioner swung his Crozius. The fractal form of the Heretic Astarte shivered as Sharar connected with it. There was the roar of a vast furnace underscored by the shriek of overtaxed bellows, the clanking of gears and the hammering of pistons, and the Ushmengar vanished like smoke blown in the wind, leaving only a chorus of trailing screams. The Death Speaker swung his Crozius, but the Chaos Space Marine dodged the attack. The strike went wide, cracking the side of the furnace. Razel punched out with his pistol and sent his opponent's bolter flying off. Undeterred, the Ushmengar ripped off a piston hammer from a slain Ogren and arrested Razel's downward swing. Muscles strained, his sinew coils contracted, and he drove the Heretic Astarte to one knee. The Ushmengar's composure broke, and he roared at the Death Speaker. With a burst of vigor, he regained his footing and shook Razel off. Burst fire from the Executioner's pistol stitched an arc across his helmet, which cracked, exposing his metallic face underneath. The delineation between the organic and the inorganic had become blurred to the extent that they had become one. Oil bled from ruined armor and unclean flesh metal. Razel swung the hammer, only to have it kicked from his hand. The Chaos Space Marine charged at Razel and tackled him from his midriff, pushing him backwards into the bulging blowpipes of the blast furnace. Wedging the Absolver pistol in the seal between helmet and gorget, the Executioner emptied the magazine into the traitor's neck. The Ushmengar's grip slackened, and Razel pushed him backwards before gripping the Crozius with both hands and bringing it down with all his might on his hated enemy's head. It burst in a shower of metal and burning blood oil. A storm broke out at the end of the hall. Lightning flashed, lancing from furnace to furnace as a rain of brimstone fell. An unholy radiance pulsed, and the penumbral gloom, accompanied by the skittering of bronze horns, lined the altar. The light rose out of the channel of the command fane and drifted towards the Death Speaker, who had advanced ahead of the binary-edged plaza. Within the pulsing storm was Callag. Molten metal was siphoned off the blast furnaces, forming fiery wheels into an armillary sphere spinning around the floating Ushmengar. The Skitarii shrieked in biharmonics as they were lifted from the raised walkways torn towards the eye of the churning storm. They were disassembled, their flesh withering into ash, while their bionics melded into the spinning rings upon which bleeding eyes had formed. As Callag moved forwards, Razel and Ikigura, a forge vault vast beyond imagining, spread out behind him, the hellish vision overlapping the reality of the Manufactorum. There was the roar of colossal furnaces, the heave and gasp of monumental bellows, and the clang of countless hammers, thudding pistons and clanking gears, underpinned by the screaming of tortured souls fueling the forges. Where Callag's form had been, a charcoal sketch jumped in and out of focus. Now it was wholly corporeal. His armor was burning black, running with unclean oils and undulants. Mechadendrites writhed from between the plates like fungal growths, straining for some dire unity with the emergent demonic mechanism. Around him were the rings of the armillary sphere, which were both armor and a mechanism to unravel reality, spinning faster and faster until they were a blur as the warp smith approached them. Up ahead, Ikigura stood alone, defiant. The crystalline matrix of his axe blazed, focusing his power before it lanced upwards into Callag. For a moment, the spinning rings slowed and fire raged down upon the epistolary, enveloping the executioner. The sigils upon his armor shone migraine bright as they earthed the worst effects of the warpsmith's attack. The librarian's mind was in throes of a fever dream, the backlash of the Ushmengar's barrage, bruising his soul. Sensing his brother's agony, Razel rose and swung, striking once more. A resonant peal shivered through the armillary sphere to no discernible effect. Callag, whose attention had been thoroughly upon Ikigura, glanced at him, his quasar-like gaze boring into Razel's own. A high-pitched screech preceded the obliteration of Razel's helm display. His armor felt heavier, the fiber bundle muscles tensed, and servos halted, keeping him upright. Straining, he raised his hands and took off his helmet. When he beheld the ashes of penitence streaking down Razel's defiant face, the warpsmith sneered. "Lapdog of the false emperor." The voice thundered like the hammer of a god striking an anvil. Razel bared his teeth in response, glistening with blood. "You were supposed to die at Badab. Oh, but you see, I did die. We were marooned in the immaterium after our warp drives failed. Bereft, betrayed by a rotting imperium and an unkind god bedecked in fool's gold. Where was Luft Huron then? His promises and his lies? We no longer need him, nor your carrion god. We have a new divinity to serve. Callag turned towards the growing portal behind him, his arms encompassing the hellish scene, and the towering demonic figure with scythe-like wings who was looking down at the executioners with amused interest. "Behold the Archiphane, our salvation. We will deliver this forged temple of Mars to him." "Brother," Ikigura's voice was straining with titanic effort, "I will not make it to the end." The Death Speaker growled. The librarian forestalled him. "Spare me your protestations. I will distract him and hold the rings, but I am not strong enough to make the final blow. That falls to you. May your own penitent crusade be over after this." Ikigura's mind soared in the warp like the rising sun. He burned with immaterial energies. Lightning cascaded down his limbs and flared off of him in arcs, with a branching spark earthing itself in the Death Speaker's Crozius. One last parting gift, from brother to brother. Razel wasted no time. With the warpsmith's attention upon the epistolary, his armor was free. He trudged forward, pausing only to pick up Ikigura's axe whilst hefting the Crozius. Breaking into a run, he leapt upon one of the stilled rings. Razel hurled the force axe. It spun, blazing, still saturated with Ikigura's psychic might and sacrifice. The blade wedged fast into Callag's breastplate, tendrils of darkness slithering out of the wound. A few moments later, Razel was upon him with Sharar, imbued with a shred of the epistolary's empiric strength. The warpsmith raged, blocking the Death Speaker's strike with a cog-toothed demonic axe. Mechadendrites speared through Razel's armor, biting deep into his flesh. Gurgling blood, the executioner drew the mace back and slammed it forwards, again and again, shattering his enemy's armor in a frenzy until his corrupt essence could no longer be contained. The unraveling of Callag was like that of a collapsing star. The death throes screamed out from his unwinding body, black flame rising between his plates, his flesh made onto ash. Far beyond the edges of civilization, across formless wastes, past the domains of the great powers of the warp, the demon smith, who thought itself a god, paused in its labors. It had become aware of a new irritant in a galaxy of such nuisances. The toil of industry never ceased in the foundries of its realm. but it could stretch a second into ample time to reflect. Its servant, Calag, had breached the veil between the materium and the immaterium to deliver the promised forged temple. Yet, it had been shut again, and in a blaze that echoed the light of the hated anathema. It would seek to hammer out the flaws in the Ushmengar it had created from the dregs of the astral claws. It might even drag the warpsmith's soul from its tormented wanderings and forge it anew. For now, though, that could wait. It turned over a battered pauldron with twin axes blazoned upon a red field. The Imperium's foremost warriors were as varied as the weapons and malefic energies the Archifane created in the Forge of Souls. Its eyes blazed, its wings unfurled. It did not take kindly to being defied in this manner. A flaw in a machine needed to be teased out, excised, and cast off. As a plan of how to deal with these executioners began to gestate within its labyrinthine mind, Vashtorr set down the pauldron, took up its hammer, and resumed its labors. And there you have it, guys, this awesome depiction of the followers of Vashtorr. They bleed oil, their flesh is basically fused with that of metal, and they're able to basically move throughout the material world in between the immaterium, almost like a ghost. But they do this through the bellows and the sounds of pistons and cogs, and that sounds really amazing. I can't wait for the day we finally see some type of follower of Vashtorr made into an actual model for the game of 40k. It's basically a mix of Dark Mechanicus and Space Marine, which I think is going to look amazing. So let me know your thoughts on this excerpt below. Let me know what you're looking forward to when it comes to Vashtorr, because I, for one, really love the model, really love his lore, but when you're playing him on the actual 10th edition game, he's not very strong. So hopefully they buff him up, and hopefully he gets an army to accompany him, whether it be Dark Mechanicus or Space Marine or some type of mixture of both. Because Demon Engines are one of my favorite types of models in the entire game, and to have this demonic entity leading them into battle is just the cherry on top. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and I'll catch you then. Peace.